Chapter 4 11 Shovels. What the hell does moral relativism mean? I had to ask this because William Barr uses this term several times in his speech, asserting that this is something that I, as a secularist, believe. After searching online, I found this definition in the Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy, a peer reviewed academic resource hosted by the University of Tennessee. Moral relativism is the view that moral judgments are true or false only relative to some particular standpoint, for instance, that of a culture or an historical period, and that no standpoint is uniquely privileged over all others. None of that has a damn thing to do with what I believe. What is culturally accepted is not the same as what is moral. Profiting off the misery of others is culturally accepted and legal in our society, but it isn't moral. Slavery was once culturally accepted and legal in this society, but it was never moral. Slavery was condoned in the Bible. It was culturally accepted by the people who wrote the Bible. It was just as immoral then as it is now. There is a universal moral standard. There just aren't universally moral outcomes. Individuals are often forced to make moral choices in an immoral social context. By that I mean a society whose laws are immoral. In Mark Twain's Huckleberry Finn, Huck must choose whether to aid the fugitive slave Jim or turn him in as the law requires. Huck makes the moral choice to aid Jim and breaks the law. Huckleberry Finn is arguably a better book for teaching morality than the Bible. Mark Twain was an atheist. When I look at human societies, past and present, so many of them involve slavery or social structures akin to it. Our own society has fought a struggle to escape from slavery, quite literally, and not long ago. This is the moral issue we need to confront, not nonsense about who is married or not married to whom. I simply don't give a shit about what consenting adults do sexually. I don't consider sex a moral issue unless it involves slavery or power relationships akin to it, as I discussed in Chapter 2. The more our society, or any society, allows the concentration of power, the fewer outcomes will be moral. Societies will be arranged in hierarchies for the convenience of the powerful. In such an arrangement, individuals, especially those with the least power, are often faced with a range of choices, none of which are real choices. In such a situation, the moral choice can become the suicidal choice. Polygamy, marriage involving more than two people, seems to be the favorite example put forward in discussions of moral relativism that I found on the internet. So, is there a moral question concerning polygamy? Yes, and it has nothing to do with moral relativism. The reality is that in most cultures that practice polygamy, women are treated as a commodity exchanged among men. That is the moral issue. Women are given little to no choice in the matter of marriage, told that God and the law have ordained this. A young woman will be told, often by her own parents, that if she refuses to become the third wife of some disgusting old rich guy, her brothers and sisters will starve. Her love for her family is used against her so that she acquiesces to an arrangement of sexual slavery. In this situation, it's not the polygamous nature of the marriage that is immoral. If she were forced into a monogamous marriage in this way, the moral issue would be the same. The fact that a ceremony has been performed doesn't transform an immoral situation into a moral one, any more than having a bill of sale erases the immorality of enslaving someone. Slavery and conditions akin to it are kept in place not only by laws, but by social indoctrination. William Barr is correct that no government alone has the power to maintain tyranny. It requires the acquiescence of the majority or some significant portion of the people to the situation, their indoctrination into at least its inevitability, if not accepting it as virtuous. Let's consider the example of Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, one of the world's richest men, whose wealth increases daily. How rich is he? If you had saved $10,000 a day from the time the pyramids in Egypt were built, you would still not have as much money as he has. There are those like Barr, the political right, who argue that Bezos' wealth is his just reward for creating a new sort of business that has attracted hordes of customers by serving their needs. The reality is that the customers' needs were actually served by the thousands of people who Bezos hired to work for him, paying them poorly and creating such oppressive working conditions that many of them wear adult diapers because they can't get to a restroom. If Bezos had hired more people and paid them decently, he would not be so rich, but his customers' needs would be equally well met, if not better. Bezos exists in a system that allows this immoral exploitation. The power of law defends his right. The power of ideological indoctrination leaves his right unchallenged. The lie that is told is the lie of opportunity. Wealth like Bezos cannot exist without the exploitation of many people. In fact, a majority of people in our society are in this situation. They do not choose to have jobs with bad wages and poor working conditions. In a society where one must have a job, and most jobs have poor wages and working conditions, most people have no real choice. In order to escape this exploitation, one must often maneuver into a position of immorally exploiting others, just like the father who pressures one daughter into sexual slavery so his other children won't starve. When I was 15, my family went on a vacation to Italy. My mother and grandmother, after many decades, were finally going to see our relatives who had survived the war, and I was going to meet my cousins, the next generation. My mother also took me to meet her childhood best friend. They hadn't seen each other since my mother fled the fascists as a teenage refugee. Her friend had not been so fortunate. We were greeted at the door by a tall, elegant woman in her 50s with salt and pepper coiffed hair. She didn't speak English and I didn't speak Italian, so my mom was a translator. Mostly, I sat there while they talked. Then my mom's friend, who I'll call Gabby, pulled up her sleeve and showed me her arm, the skin marred by a crude blue-green tattoo, a series of numbers, her concentration camp identity. Gabby told me a story. She was in a group of 12 girls ordered to dig holes in the dirt by the guards. The guards announced that anyone who wasn't digging would be shot. The guards brought shovels, 11 shovels, for 12 girls. My blood turned cold. I could not say anything. I looked into Gabby's face, a kind face that I could tell must have once been stunningly beautiful when she was young. She was alive, so she must have gotten one of the shovels. In my mind's eye, I pictured 12 friends turned into murderous rivals to meet the sadistic demands of their captors. What of the 12th girl? Had she been shot by the guards or been beaten to death in the struggle with her fellow captives to obtain a shovel? I could not ask these questions of Gabby. I don't remember what I did say. All I remember is the horror. The 50 years that have passed since that day have not diminished it. We have all heard stories of atrocities, but it is another thing entirely when the story is told to you by the person who lived it as they looked into your eyes. The purpose of indoctrination is to override compassion. This is a categorical statement, I know. If you can think of a situation where indoctrination resulted in greater empathy, please let me know. To me, in every instance, indoctrination involves deferring to the dictates of an authority and tamping down our compassion that revolts against it. It is the triumph of fear over love. That is why there are refugee children locked in cages in the United States of America at this very moment. Enshrining his biases into the law is what William Barr's quest for religious liberty is about. I know, because men like Barr have been attacking my religious liberty my whole life, trying to shove God down my throat in matters great and small. They literally have been trying to deny people like me the rights of full citizenship because we do not believe in God. Once you go down that road as a society, where do you end up? The girls with the shovels were in a concentration camp because they believed in the wrong God. The Uyghurs are in concentration camps in China because they practice a religion banned in that society. Right God, wrong God, yes God, no God. What the fuck is the difference? The issue is control. Control begins with the minds of the people you seek to subjugate. Here in America, we like to call ourselves the leader of the free world, but there has always been an authoritarian undercurrent. As a child, I was told the story of the pilgrims who came here seeking religious freedom. The fact was, they had been driven out of England after creating a bloodbath under their leader, the dictator Oliver Cromwell. This doesn't mean their opponents were the good guys either. Cromwell's opponents were monarchists who restored the hereditary aristocracy to power with its system of fixed social caste. Just because two groups are fighting doesn't mean that either of them are the good guys. The pilgrims arrived, killed the native people who offered them succor, and burned women to death as witches. Their severe black and gray clothing is a personification of their worldview: closed mind, Bibles, and a reign of terror. They embraced slavery and indentured servitude. In the years before the United States entered World War II, fascist ideas were becoming increasingly accepted in America. This was not just a fringe movement. Captains of industry such as Henry Ford praised Mussolini. Charles Lindbergh, the famous aviator, lauded Adolf Hitler as undoubtedly a great man. In 1940, Lindbergh's wife published a bestseller that called Totalitarianism the Wave of the Future and an ultimately good conception of humanity. Less than 100 years before Mrs. Lindbergh advocated totalitarianism, chattel slavery had been made illegal. Nevertheless, the desire to enslave and oppress lived on and still lives on. According to political scientist Seva Ganitsky, surveys of U.S. public opinion from the 1930s are a startling reminder of just how widespread these attitudes became. As late as July 1942, a Gallup poll showed that 1/6 Americans thought Hitler was doing the right thing to the Jews. A 1940 poll found that nearly a fifth of Americans saw Jews as a national menace, more than any other group, including Germans. Almost a third anticipated a widespread campaign against the Jews, a campaign that 12% of Americans were willing to support. It would be an error to suppose that all the people supporting totalitarian government are uneducated Bible waivers. Some of them are highly educated men, like William Barr. According to Ganitsky, in his 1934 presidential address, the president of the American Political Science Association, the nation's oldest and largest organization of political scientists, railed against the dogma of universal suffrage and argued for abolishing a democracy that allowed the ignorant, the uninformed, and the antisocial elements to vote. If these reforms smacked of fascism, he concluded, then we must have already recognized that there is a large element of fascist doctrine and practice that we must appropriate. The president of the Political Science Association reflected a reactionary political view, taking us all the way back to the founding of the country, when only white men of property could vote. Our whole history can be seen as a struggle to actualize the equality that the American revolutionists asserted in the 1776 Declaration of Independence, but failed to enshrine in the original Constitution. This has always been a free country for white men of property. All you need do is be a person who doesn't fit that criteria to see the gap between rhetoric and reality when it comes to freedom. To those like Barr, whose mission is to restore the traditional family, I hear the echo of the Nazis' KKK. Their dictum for women's lives, Kinder, Küche, Kirche, which means children, kitchen, church. The quest for a truly free society is a political minefield. There are no facile answers. That is why I think the question of who has power over whom has first to be examined as a moral question. Oddly enough, Barr and I seem to agree on this. Where we disagree is what morality means. Until morality stops being a euphemism for sex, we won't be able to discuss it in a meaningful way. The religious right has claimed the mantle of morality and sought to compel all of us to debate it in their terms. In just these past 2 weeks, as the political conventions for the 2020 presidential election are underway, the GOP is advancing the talking point that their opponents, the Democratic Party, are against God. They have made the claim that in some of their convention sessions, those that were not televised, Democrats recited the Pledge of Allegiance, omitting the phrase under God. If they did, great. I won't recite it either. Whether they did or didn't is not the important question for me. It misses the point that I care about. Why is there mandatory recitation of a Pledge of Allegiance at all in what claims to be a free country? It was the Pledge of Allegiance, with its compulsory under God, that made me start to question, as a child, the idea that I was living in a free country. I did not know the word indoctrination yet, but I perceived the situation the word describes. 3 years before I was born, the words under God were added to the pledge. This was a Cold War propaganda maneuver to associate liberty, justice, and being American with belief in God, as opposed to the godless communist USSR. I doubt I would have had questions about the Pledge of Allegiance had I not become an atheist. I would have been like all the other children, reciting words they did not understand because they were told to do so by the teacher. Swearing an oath, making a pledge, goes to the core of my moral universe. An oath means nothing unless it is freely undertaken. A compelled pledge is not a real pledge. It's a ritual of subjugation. 2 years into my school career, I ceased to believe in God. Yet every day I was forced to look at the flag and recite something that was a lie. The outcome was not feelings of patriotism and pride. I felt dirty and ashamed. The flag became the symbol of those who wished to strip me of my most basic aspiration, to be a person of honor who speaks the truth. When I graduated from high school, I was so relieved that I'd never have to deal with the Pledge of Allegiance again, or so I thought. Decades later, on the other side of the country, my friend, also an atheist, and I decided that our little rural town needed a farmer's market. This required going to the local council and requesting permission to use a public park for this purpose. I confess I had never been to one of those meetings since I'd moved to the area, so I was nonplussed to discover that every meeting began with a recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance. Why was I being pressured to do this in order to exercise my right to attend a government meeting? When I say pressure, I do not mean the council demanded I recite it. That would be illegal. What they said was, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Here was the problem. I was not just a spectator. I was there to ask the local government to take action on a request, one that I believed would better the lives of many in my community by bringing good fresh food to people and supporting those doing the hard work of producing it, family farmers. Few people attend these meetings unless there is a controversy. They are held in a small room, and everyone can clearly see everyone else. I was worried. If they see that I am not reciting the pledge, because I will not, is this a goddamn free country? Will the farmer's market be rejected? Will my neighbors have no alternative but poisoned agribusiness food? Will the family farmers have to soldier on with no damn support while agribusiness gets millions in government subsidies? Luckily, either no one noticed or no one cared, and the farmer's market went forward. You might wonder, why make such a big deal about this? I know many people who would view the situation differently. They'd say, I'll recite any bullshit, who cares? Just get the farmer's market going. That's the important thing. This is why words matter, truth matters. If people can make you recite lies out of fear, you don't live in a free society. Lying to Nazis is necessary, even virtuous. But if lying or acquiescing to official lies is a requirement in a society, then you are living in a tyranny. A nation can't be free when it has a president who has lied to the people more than 20,000 times. A nation can't be free when it has an attorney general who violates his sworn oath and uses his office to cover up the crimes of the president and his associates and to wage a religious jihad under the cover of law. Do you know that the word God is not mentioned once in the Constitution? That the only references to religion are that Congress shall make no law, either to mandate it or to abridge its free exercise, and that no religious test shall be required for public office. Nevertheless, until the Supreme Court ruling in the case of Torcaso v. Watkins in 1961, many state constitutions prohibited anyone who did not believe in God from holding public office. Roy Torcaso had been appointed by the governor of Maryland to the office of notary public, but he was denied a commission because he would not declare his belief in God, as required by the Maryland Constitution. Torcaso could simply have avoided the years of hassle and expense of taking his case all the way to the Supreme Court by just lying, by falsely declaring he had a belief in God. How many people have? But consider the job Torcaso was being refused: notary public. A notary public is basically an official witness who certifies that the person who signs a legal document is who they say they are, that something is true. By refusing to falsely state that he believed in God, Torcaso showed himself to be just the sort of person one would want a notary public to be. A person who would not certify falsely, even when it was in his personal benefit to do so, such as when someone offers to slip him some cash under the table to certify a forgery. Our system of justice is based on witnesses telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Words matter. The Supreme Court ruled in favor of Torcaso, deciding that the laws requiring God belief unconstitutionally invaded his freedom of belief and religion, guaranteed by the First Amendment and protected by the 14th Amendment from infringement by the states. Though requirements to affirm God belief can no longer be enforced since the decision, 8 states still maintain this language in their constitutions. Here's the language currently in the Arkansas state constitution, the state that sent Tom, slavery is a necessary evil, Cotton, to the United States Senate to make laws. Article 19, Section 1. No person who denies the being of a god shall hold any office in the civil departments of this state, nor be competent to testify as a witness in any court. Behind these dry words is an outrageous proposition. If you don't believe in God, you have no right to justice. If you are a victim of sexual assault and you want the rapist prosecuted, you must testify in court that you were forced to endure sexual contact against your will. If you can't testify because you don't believe in God, then it means perpetrators of sexual assault won't be punished if they assault atheists. If you hire a contractor to fix your roof and he tears it off and then never comes back, you can't go to court and testify. How about this? You are falsely accused of a crime and you want to take the stand in your own defense. You can't because you don't believe in God. This is not religious liberty. This is religious tyranny. Is that a law you'd expect in a free country or someplace run by the Taliban? This is not some law from the 1700s. This law was in effect until I was 5 years old. What possible argument could there be for requiring a belief in God to hold public office or give testimony? A 2019 Pew survey found that 42% of Americans think it's necessary to believe in God to be moral, a number that has declined significantly from one conducted 5 years earlier, when a majority, 53%, thought morality required belief in God. What evidence is there that people who believe in God are more moral, or at least behave better in society than those who don't? I don't know how one compiles statistics on morality, but one can certainly look at people who commit crimes as an imperfect analog. As I've said before, bad people make bad laws, and stupid people make stupid laws. As a result, corporate executives who sell exploding cars won't be found among the imprisoned, and people who grow a bunch of cannabis plants in their garden or who agree to have sex with someone in exchange for cash instead of dinner and a show will. Therefore, we can't fairly assume that everyone in prison is a moral failure. However, let's just, for the sake of this exercise, assume that we are the greatest country in the world with the greatest laws, okay? According to the 2013 census completed by the Bureau of Justice Statistics, the estimated number of inmates in the prison system was 1,574,700 people at that time. Of these people, less than 1%, 0.07% of the inmates identified as atheists. Clearly, people who reject belief in God aren't responsible for a crime wave. So, how many Americans don't believe in God? Those who try to survey this admit that it is difficult to determine. Pew Research Center telephone surveys conducted in 2018 and 2019 show that 4% of American adults say they are atheists when asked about their religious identity. An additional 5% of Americans call themselves agnostics, people neither willing to say that God doesn't exist or that God does exist. Altogether, about 23% of the population describe themselves as not affiliated with any religion, though they may believe in some sort of supernatural force. The situation is complicated by the fact that a number of people who have a religious identity nevertheless tell researchers they don't believe in God. This is not as strange as it sounds. Religious organizations provide social functions. Churches organize to help a member in a time of need. They offer a way to make friends or business contacts. And of course, Since so many people think religious belief is a requirement to be moral, politicians are sure to be seen at church, even if they don't believe in God. A particular religion may be a part of a cultural identity. People who want to maintain a relationship with cultural roots or believing family members will participate in religious ritual even though they don't believe in the supernatural claims underlying it. In some cases, they must maintain a charade of belief or risk expulsion from their community. In some cases, these secret non-believers are members of clergy who lose their faith, but conceal this because they'll lose their livelihood and have no training to make a living any other way. This will immediately strike many people as wrong. How is it different than a person hired to sell a product they know is lousy, but whose job requires them to persuade others to buy it? I have always wondered if many of the people who say they believe in God actually do. They don't live their lives as if there were all seeing surveillance from above. The whole idea behind God, at least as it relates to swearing to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, is that God is going to whip your ass if you fail to keep the oath made in his name. Yet, like William Barr, these God believers break their oaths, they lie, and worse. When I was in high school, I met a girl who really seemed to want to be my friend. I didn't have much in common with her, but she always invited me to sleep over. It wasn't that much fun to be at her house. Her parents were very religious and strict. Her mother was grim and colorless, maybe because she had given birth to 7 children. One time, when my friend invited me to stay over, I really didn't feel like it, so I turned her down. Then she begged me to come. She said, "If you spend the night, my father won't come into my room." She also made me swear never to tell anyone she said that. Because I swore an oath to keep her secret, I didn't tell anyone. This is one case when keeping an oath was the wrong thing to do. So it is also when a government official swears not to divulge top secret information, when revealing that information would make the public aware of corrupt or criminal actions the government is hiding. At the time I was in high school, sexual abuse of children by family members was never discussed. I wondered what would have happened if I had tried to report what my friend told me. The man I'd be accusing was a respectable member of the community who took his family to church every Sunday. What was that rapist daddy thinking as he sat in the pew with a pious mien? I raised this hypocrisy of the religious in a recent conversation with a friend, a former Christian. She explained to me the Christian concept of grace. My jaw went slack in astonishment. It was such a scam. I accused her of pulling my leg. I made her say it again under rigorous questioning. Me. You mean all you have to do is tell God you're sorry? You don't have to apologize to the person you harmed? Friend. That's right. Me. If you ripped someone off, you don't have to pay them back. You just have to tell God you're sorry? Friend. That's right. Me. So if you murder someone, you don't have to take care of their orphaned children? Just apologize to God? Friend. That's right. That's what the whole Jesus died for your sins thing means. Most Christians are not moral monsters, but that is clearly not due to their religious beliefs. On occasion, I have seen businesses advertise that they are owned by a Christian. Does that mean they'll cheat me and then ask God for forgiveness? What are the implications of the notion that one can't be moral without belief in God? To me, that says that those who hold that view believe there is no reason to do the right thing absent fear of punishment. That is Barr's argument for religion, that man is fallen. Barr is so fallen, he can't get up. Moral behavior, as I define it, is based on respect for oneself as well as others. It is its own reward. It is a form of art that works on the canvas of life to make it more beautiful. Dire Straits' 1985 hit, Money for Nothing, satirizes the point of view of a guy who delivers refrigerators and laments that he should have learned to play the guitar or the drums so he could get money for nothing and chicks for free. Money and sexual access are not what motivates artists to make art, though they're delighted to achieve worldly rewards. Ironically, being an artist is the endeavor least likely to get you any money at all. In what other field are people expected to work for years to attain excellence without earning a dime, with no guarantee that they can ultimately quit their day job, which might involve moving refrigerators, in order to be able to do their art full time? Artists make art because they are driven to transform the world, to create beauty out of chaos. It is a process of ecstasy and pain, an experience of transcending oneself. It is, for lack of a better word, spiritual. This artistic impulse imbues many areas of human endeavor that we don't call art: the prowess of an athlete, the act of defiance by the tank man from Tiananmen Square, the idea of God as a creative force, an idea that seems to exist across all religions, is our expression of what's inside us. Alas, it is not all that is inside us. The New Testament book of John contains the statement, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life." It was humans who wrote these words. It is humans who strive to express this love of the world in a creative act. There are those who fear that without God, life has no meaning. There is no God, but there is meaning. Your life has meaning because you created that meaning. Love is the maker of meaning. Look at anything that means something to you, and you'll find that love is at the heart of it. To be moral is to manifest that love in society, to alleviate suffering, to not act in a way that creates more of it. There is no reason for people to be hungry or homeless. There is no reason for people to be brutalized by other people or poisoned by toxic products to make a buck for someone else. We do not lack the ability or the resources as a species to address these problems. We lack the political will because we have allowed those people who possess one of the most extreme of all moral failings, insatiable greed, to control our society. And they use religion, as they have down the centuries, as a shield against accountability, as a way to blame their victims by telling them their suffering is not the result of the rapaciousness of men without conscience, but the vagaries of an ineffable supreme being that does not exist.